China is getting ready to send troops to Ukraine. US President Donald Trump is halting his peace efforts over Ukraine. Meanwhile, the White House does not allow Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia. So why is China open to sending troops to Ukraine, and why does the US prevent Ukraine from winning the deep war inside Russia? China has expressed readiness to participate in a potential peacekeeping mission in Ukraine, a development that has sparked a mixed reaction among European allies, according to the German newspaper Welt am Sonntag. Sources close to the Chinese government have confirmed China's willingness to contribute personnel to a peacekeeping contingent in Ukraine. However, that participation could be possible only in case of a mission operated under the United Nations. While some in Brussels view China's overture as a positive sign, particularly in terms of expanding support for peace efforts among countries in the global south, others are expressing concern over the potential implications of ground deployment to Ukraine. Quote, "There is also danger that China will spy on Ukraine and will take a pro-Russian position instead of neutral one in the event of conflict," one senior EU diplomat told Welt am Sonntag. As German newspaper reports, China has publicly claimed neutrality in the Russian-Ukraine war. However, it has refrained from condemning Russia's actions and has maintained close economic ties with Kremlin. According to the report, many EU member states are reluctant to support UN-level peacekeeping mandate for various reasons. The discussions around China's role in a future peace settlement has also emerged in high-level talks between European leaders. During a meeting with US President Trump and Russian dictator Putin expressed openness to this offer by China and named China as one of the countries that could provide security guarantees. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, when asked about this matter, stated that he did not see China among them. The reason is that China fuels Putin's war machine. China is helping Russia to continue its war in Ukraine by sending technology and goods that can be used for military purposes, including drones, machine tools, and other equipment that Russia needs to build weapons. China also buys large amount of Russia's oil and gas, giving Moscow money to fund the war. Trade between two countries has grown, and China is helping Russia to avoid Western sanctions by using its own currency in banks. Also, China has privately signaled that it does not want Russia to lose the war in Ukraine, according to the South China Morning Post. That's why China could align with Russia in case of another war in Ukraine and undermines the credibility of any peace mission. Beijing appears to view a Russian defeat as a strategic setback that would benefit the US and weaken China's position. In a report published by the South China Morning Post later, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas during a meeting that China cannot afford to let Russia lose the war. The reason, sources said, is that a Russian defeat would allow the US to shift its full focus to Asia, to Indo-Pacific, where tensions with China are rising over Taiwan. According to a recent foreign affairs analysis, Beijing sees Russia as a necessary partner in such multipolar world orders that challenges US dominance. A collapsed or significantly weakened Russia would undermine that vision and disrupt access to key resources. Moreover, Ukrainian officials have echoed this view. Ukrainian intelligence chief Kirill Budanov says that China supports Ukraine's territorial integrity, but is not interested in Russia's defeat, fearing that such outcome would leave China isolated and exposed in its strategic competition with US. Further analysis from Business Insiders suggests that China benefits from the ongoing war by keeping the US occupied in Europe, buying time for China to strengthen its position in Asia. Meanwhile, Pentagon blocks Ukraine's use of long-range missiles against Russia, according to the Wall Street Journal. Pentagon has been preventing Ukraine from using American long-range missiles to strike Russia for several months. Officials say that a new approval process within the US Defense Pentagon has effectively blocked Kyiv from deploying ATACMS against Russia. At least once, Ukraine sought to launch ATACMS strike on a Russian target but was denied permission. The journal highlighted that Elbridge Colby, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Policy, has created a formal review mechanism to evaluate Ukraine's request to use American long-range weapons as well as European missiles that depend on U.S. intelligence. Under the system, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth holds the ultimate authority to approve or deny Ukraine's use of ATACMS against Russia. However, last week, President Trump stated that Ukraine would not be able to defeat Russia unless it goes on offensive and strike Russia. This statement contradicts his official policy and decision by Pentagon. The U.S. Institute for the Study of War has been clear in its assessment. Limiting Ukraine's ability to strike Russia is helping Moscow to maintain key military operations. Institute points out that the U.S. restrictions prevent Ukraine from targeting 84% of Russia's territory. This creates what amount a safe zone where Russian forces can conduct command control, logistics and air support against Ukraine. These areas serve as vital hubs for Russia's war effort. This policy has had real consequences on the battlefield. The think tank argues that allowing Ukraine to hit military targets within Russia could disrupt those operations, potentially shifting the momentum of war. Striking deep inside Russia would force Kremlin to divert resources and protect other areas and reduce attacks against Ukraine. Meanwhile, despite Pentagon restrictions, Ukraine launches mass production of long-range cruise missile, reportedly twice as powerful as Tomahawk, Associated Press reports. This missile, Flamingo missile, is reported to have a range of up to 1,900 miles and warhead twice as the Tomahawk missile, according to Ukrainian officials. The missile was developed by Ukrainian defense startup Firepoint. President Zelensky confirmed that the missile has already been used in combat, calling it the most successful missile we have. He said mass production would continue next year. The missile's rollout comes as the U.S. president continues to limit how Ukraine uses U.S. weapons capabilities, and impact the Flamingo range would allow Ukraine to hit targets inside Russia, including critical infrastructure previously thought to be out of reach. Analysts say the missile's combination of range, firepower, and production capacity could strain Russia's air defense and force Moscow to divert resources away from the front lines. In the meantime, Trump's administration has begun an all-out war against political opponents, weaponizing federal agencies. Federal agents searched the home and office of former National Security Advisor John Bolton this week, in connection with renewed investigation into mishandling of classified documents. The FBI executed court-approved search warrants at Bolton's Maryland residence and D.C. office on August 22, seizing boxes of documents and other digital devices. The Wall Street Journal condemned the raid as vindictive, pointing to Bolton's role as one of Trump's critics, quote, "So much for Trump campaign vote to move on from political wars to the past. The Bolton raid looks like pure payback." Trump has criticized Bolton in public, calling him warmonger and liar. He denied ordering or influencing the investigation. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have both defended the raid as a part of a broader effort to ensure equal enforcement of law. Vice President J.D. Vance said the Justice Department was following legal procedures throughout. He acknowledged the political optics were sensitive. Also, legal experts warns that while the search may be legally justified, it could further fuel concerns over the politicization of law enforcement under Trump's administration. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and glory to Ukraine.